Welcome to the Children's Book Author Podcast. I'm your host, Eleanor Page. If you write for children, or it's always been your dream to, you're in the right place. As the children's book author, I'm on a quest to discover everything there is about writing, publishing, and marketing children's books, as well as how to supercharge my creativity, skyrocket my productivity, and absolutely everything else there is to know about how to be the best, so you can be too. Join me as I interview fabulous guests and become the children's book author. Welcome back to the Children's Book Author Podcast. If you're new here, I'm Eleanor Page, a children's book author with more than 25 published books these days, and also a story mentor who helps other writers craft children's books that kids actually love. And that part is key. It's been a while since I released a new episode because I've been deep inside my own writing again. I haven't released a new book for a little while, so I'm diving back in and working hard behind the scenes because it's so important to me to be a writer myself, not just a teacher or helper to everybody else. And I've been working with students inside my new course, The Picture Book and Middle Grade Writing Blueprint. So thank you to everyone, all the podcast listeners, for your support. It's been such a joy to run. We have monthly coaching sessions as well as all the incredible knowledge that's in there, and watching writers go from idea to now making such massive progress with their scripts is honestly one of my absolute favorite things. And what I love is it just feeds itself. So working with other great minds helps me be a better writer, and then it all just flows so beautifully so that we children's book authors can take over the world and entertain the next generation of kids. And today I am so excited to share this conversation. I'm joined by Dustin Brady, who is the author of the massively popular Trapped in a Video Game series, which has sold more than 3 million copies worldwide. And I do get that verification from Dustin. And in this episode, we talk about what keeps kids turning pages. I dive into how Dustin writes, how he markets, all the wonderful things that have made him so successful. So whether you're a writer, a parent, a teacher, or just someone who loves children's books, I think you're going to absolutely love this conversation and get so much out of it. So let's dive in. Welcome back to the Children's Book Author Podcast with me, your host, Eleanor or Elena, however you want to say it, Paige. And today I'm joined by an amazing guest, someone I've had my eye on that I've wanted as a guest for a very, very long time. It is Dustin Brady, children's book extraordinaire. And I love this cute little bio. It is just perfect. Dustin writes books for kids who think they hate reading. How genius is that? His Trapped in a Video Game series has sold over 1 million copies, but I heard a rumor that it's 3 million. So let's see what he tells me. Because as it turns out, there are a lot of kids who think they hate reading, not after they've read one of his books. And as well as that series, he also has Escape from a Video Game series, Adventures in a Video Game, Leela and Nugget, or it might be Layla, I'll have to ask the proper pronunciation of that, and Nugget Mystery Series, and The World's Worst Time Machine. Welcome to the show, Dustin.
Thanks, Ellen. I appreciate you having me. That was a very enthusiastic introduction. I appreciate it. It's very nice.
Well, as we were talking, and for those who are watching the video, I'm like, this is my version of your Trapped in a Video Game book. And I mean, I won't go as far as to say I sleep with it under my pillow, because I don't. But I do read it every so often because it was one of the first books, and this is true, that I read and thought, oh my gosh, that is actually so fun and amazing. Maybe I could write something like that. And then I wrote my Evie Everyday Witch series. And it was really, it's nothing like yours, but it was inspired by reading trapped in a video game. So my very first question is, you say in your bio, right, that a lot of kids think they hate reading, and you write books for kids like that. A lot of other authors say that too. But when I read their book, I think, well, maybe kids will still hate reading after reading your book, which sounds awful. But after I read your books, it is so engaging. So I guess my question is, how do you reverse engineer that so that it really does provide on the promise? Because it does. All your books, I think, provide on their promise. What's the secret? What's
Thanks.
the secret, Dustin?
Thanks a lot. Again, that's super nice of you to say. So for me, when I growing up, I liked reading a lot. I loved it. I was in the library all the time, and I just loved reading. And so I have a big catalog of things in my head that I liked. Shows that I liked, but books that I liked. And so for me, I always go back to what I liked as a kid. And so when I wrote my first book, when I wrote Trapped in a Video Game, I did not write it specifically for kids that didn't think they liked reading. I wrote it for myself for when I was 10. And it just so happens a lot of kids like that. And so for me, going back and thinking about that, like I know that that is something that appeals to people, that people are looking for books that for kids that hate reading, going into schools, listening to teachers, listening to parents. A lot of people are looking for that kind of thing. And so for me, I'm like, well, hey, I've heard from a ton of kids that kids like these books. Almost every day, several times a week, I get notes from parents, from kids that say that I didn't think I liked reading. Read these books and I can't stop reading them. And so for me, I've kind of engineered it from that, where I write for myself for when I was a kid, and then doing all these other things for kids that don't think they like reading. So I do a lot of extra things where if a kid finishes the whole series, they can send me a note, and I'll record a video and answer their questions, and things like that. Just little things to keep them reading, to reward them for reading, to make it a memorable experience, because everybody remembers that first book, that first series that really got them into reading, and you can always remember that, and I think it's such a cool thing to be a part of that for kids.
Oh, that's amazing. So if I get to the end of the series, will you record me one?
I'd be happy to. I'd be thrilled to.
No, but that's so, and I mean, that's one of the things I truly love about you. We've been connected for a lot of years. And
Yeah.
even though we haven't spoken in a few years, I, reached out and you were like, yeah, of course. And I'm like, oh my God, that is so you. Like you are so approachable and down to earth. And I think one time when we were on a big Zoom call, I said, because you're like a big kid to me. And although it's probably not the right thing to have said, but to me, it's not that you're a big kid. I mean, maybe all writers are who write for kids, but it's like you really relate to kids on such a level that's so real. Like you remember what it is to actually be a kid, whereas some writers think they do, but still you can hear the adult writing the book. Whereas it feels like when I read your books, I hear the kid in your voice.
Yeah, well, again, that's really nice of you to say. Yeah, I mean, I'm around kids a lot. I lead kids church at my church. I just got done coaching my son's basketball team, so I think that's a big part of it, being around kids a lot. And then again, part of it is, like I said, my personality, and I think that's what makes a good children's author. People ask me a lot if I would ever write an adult book. I'm like, I don't know. I don't, that it doesn't really cross my mind very much. I think like a kid, and I really enjoy writing those books for sure. So I feel very blessed to be able to do this, and I want to keep doing it as long as I can for sure.
Yeah. So what did you do before you were a children's book author?
Yeah, so I was a reporter for a little newspaper around here. I did some copywriting, some things like that, and so that helped me as far as marketing on Amazon goes and things like that. Knowing what connects with people, and then I worked for a sports magazine. There's a magazine for high school athletes. And that was really fun. So I worked as an editor. I did some writing there too. So I did all that going into it before. And then I started selling on Amazon, just as kind of like on a whim. My wife and I, we were looking at having kids, and so looking for something that maybe she could do at home some, and cut back on her hours where she was working. and it just kind of took off. And so I quit my job at the sports magazine just because it was replacing my income, and that gave me time to do this. This is something I always wanted to do. I didn't think I could ever make a career out of it, but with the extra time, I thought, well, this is something I'll try, and it's really worked out. So I'm very, very thankful that it happened.
Yeah. Oh, well, it's really interesting you said that you're a reporter because I often hear that journalists often career change and become novelists and are just
Mm.
so good at it from having been reporters. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think my writing style is very, direct, very quick, and things like that. And I think that that is partly due just to that reporter brain, where you want to get out the stuff. You only have so much, so much column space to use, and you got to get it out in time. So I think, I edit myself, pretty tightly. And my books are usually pretty tight. And again, that works well for kids, for reluctant readers especially. There's a lot of books out there for kids that are great, but there are 200, 300, 400 pages. And, for somebody who's just getting into chapter books and things like that, that's really intimidating. And so I try, very, very specifically to keep my books very tight, keep the chapters, usually 10 pages or less. With a cliffhanger on the end of each one, and a lot of that goes to just that news kind of training, where you want to keep the story moving.
Yeah, interesting. The other thing that really stood out about the Trapped in a Video Game. Now, I was saying I have a lot of your other books, but they're on Kindle. But this is my only real copy,
Sure.
and I love the layout. Like the size is bigger
Hmm.
than say a normal kind of illustrated chapter book. I think they're usually slightly smaller. And they say, I'm not that I'm an expert, but that you either do the indents or the gaps, but you've done the indents and the gaps so that it's so easy to read. For those that are on the YouTube, you can see it's just the layout is so reader friendly, that bigger book and the way that it's all laid out. Did you do that on purpose?
Yeah, so to kind of back up a little bit, so I self-published this back in 2016. It did well on Amazon, and then it got picked up by a traditional publisher, Andrews McMeel Publishing. Here in the U.S., they publish a lot of comic strips, things like Peanuts and Garfield and Calvin and Hobbes and things like that. But maybe a decade or more ago, they started doing children's books, and so this is one of the titles they picked up. And so that version that you have is the Andrews McMeel version. So they took some of the things that I did, but they're really good about that. They really want to make things very friendly, very easy. They publish a lot of graphic novels for kids, but these chapter book kind of things they do really approachable books. And so a lot of that layout thing is stuff that they do, and of course, and I have feedback on that too. But and I always try to push them more towards that, and they've been really good about doing that. Where yeah, I want to make it as friendly, as easy as possible to get into it, to read. A lot of kids are very into graphic novels. That's how my son's in first grade, and he loves those. And it's very easy to get into it. It's very approachable to read that Dog Man book. And then to pick up a chapter book, you want to make it that next step before they get into the Harry Potter, before they get
Mm.
into those 400 word books. And that is a thing where just feedback from parents and teachers, that is an area that maybe there is a little bit of an opportunity there, that there's not as much stuff out there for those kids like that, and so I try to make my books as approachable as I can.
Yeah, fantastic. So you started off as being self-published and then you
Hmm.
made the switch. So what did it look like before and after? And I mean, is that normal to get picked up if you, because I think in Australia, though there'll be someone who corrects me, send into the show. um well, I did actually approach Penguin one time and said, do you pick up books that have done really well and are self-published? And she said, absolutely not. If it's been self-published, we won't. But if it's original, we might. But if it's been self-published and it's really blown up, then we might consider it. So yeah, talk to me about that journey. What was it like being self-published? Why? How, there's so many questions in there. Why? How did you make the switch? And what that's been like?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'd be happy to talk about it. So, yeah, I self-published this book. I wrote it to be my favorite book as a kid. I really didn't think it would do well, honestly. I mean, is in the Amazon space. Like I can see Amazon's really great about showing you sales rank, and I had an idea of how things, sell at certain ranks. And so I didn't have any illusions that it would do well. And so I wrote it actually like pretty fast. The Trapped in a Video Game was the fastest book I ever wrote, and because I didn't think anybody would read it. And then, all those voices got in my head after people started reading it. But I published it, put on Amazon, and ran some Amazon ads against it. The nice thing about Amazon is kind of once you get in the algorithm, once people start buying it and recommending it, they just start recommending it to people. And so that self-published version really took off over the course of that first year. I remember taking the dog for a walk maybe 2 months into it, and I had 10 sales for the day. And I just remember like standing there and like jumping up and down and like punching the air and running home. And the dog was really excited about it. And I was like, man, I made it, like 10 sales. This is crazy. And so, yeah, so that's kind of what it was. And I was, again, very thankful, very happy to be able to do that because that meant, hey, I could write more books and just keep doing this a little bit. So about a year after that first book got published, there were several other books out in the series at that point. And I got a call from an editor at Andrews McMeel Publishing, and she said, we really like your book. We've been looking for something in the video game space, and we were wondering if you were interested in republishing with us. And so, I mean, I had a lot of questions for them. I ended up talking to some of the authors that were with them, and so they're a little bit unique where they have done this several times with several different writers, and they've had a lot of success doing that in the poetry space, a couple in the children's space, and so they've had a lot of success doing that. So they're not strangers to that kind of thing, and they're again a little bit different where. They are a lot more collaborative than some of the bigger publishers too, where my brother did the art for my original series, and so they kept him on, and he did the art for those books and things like that. And so it's been really nice to be able to collaborate with them and to do things like that. So I would say, I mean, it's a little bit of an unusual case. I mean, I was making more per sale on royalty self-published. That's just the way that it works. And so I would have to sell a lot more books in order to make up for it. And so I was really nervous about it going into it. But there was times when I was like, well, maybe not, maybe so. I talked to several people, people that were with them had great feedback. So I went with it. And again, it was the best decision that I ever made. And I don't know, it's hard to point at. It's not like I went with them and then it started selling in a lot more areas besides Amazon. I got other sales besides Amazon. But the Amazon sales really picked up, and I'm not sure exactly what to attribute that to. But those did really well. And then because I'm with the publisher, like they do all sorts of other stuff. And so they ended up doing a box set. And that box set is what really, really took off. And that's nice, right? Where you get 5 sales because I have 5 books in the series instead of just one. And then the pandemic, it took off a lot because people are looking for those books for boys and things like that. So, I know that people have different experiences with different publishers, and there's always things where, hey, I wish we could have done this differently. I wish we could have done that differently. But I'm very thankful that I've been with them. They've been nothing but great with me and very collaborative. And it is that nice mix of, as a self-published author, like I have a lot of business ideas, a lot of marketing ideas, and they've been a great partner with that, where they're willing to run with things and collaborate on things too. So it's been a really great experience. I know that it's not true for everybody, but I'm really thankful that it's true for me and it really worked out.
Yeah, especially if they're, like you say, so collaborative and that's amazing.
Yeah.
And so have they done all the other series as well? Like they're now your
Hmm.
publisher for everything?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've done they republished that Layla and Nugget series was a self-published series that they took over and they republished that. But yeah, all my new books that I published with them, and it's been great for sure.
My goodness. So where do you get your ideas from? I mean, come on. I must confess, I taught my first how to write a children's book course last year.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I just nagged on and on and on about, but I feel like it just goes through people's heads, was
Hmm.
you've got to come up with a great idea. Like everybody
Hmm.
thinks like, oh my gosh, this idea is amazing. And you go, Yeah, it's not that it's not amazing, but will it stand out
Yeah.
and will it be, that little bit different in the market? And I think
Hmm.
people can have have some trouble with that because your ideas all seem not just appealing to kids, but also commercial. And it's got the mix of the
Mm.
two. And I wonder, do you do that on purpose, or is it just that your little creative brain again says, would I want to read this?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's a couple things. I think that I always it's like a Venn diagram for me where things that I get really excited about, I know that is going to be something that like I want something that I'm excited about and that I at least can see that there's some sort of track record of sales for. And so like, it is a combination of things like I have to be really excited about the idea and I have to see that, well, here's a series or here's a series that's a similar thing, here's a similar idea, and I'm tapping into something that I think that there's something in the market here. Sometimes that's true, sometimes that is not true, but I always kind of have to go into it with a theory where it's like I think that some people get really excited about their idea. And that's great, but they don't, I always do, I'm always doing a lot of research. I'm always looking at what's working, kind of try to get a theory of why that is working. And I think that's important, not just to be like, this is working, but try to figure out, look at the reviews, try to figure out their story, listen to interviews, things like that. How are their books selling? What are some things that they're doing that, might be an overlap of something that I like in the market. So, it's that kind of thing. And then it is very much, it always starts with things that I loved as a kid. And just the types of stories that I love. And so if I can get excited about something in a story, then I know that hey, this is an idea that like can take me through the end of the book. Because there's always when you're writing a book, there's always a point when you want to give up. And it's usually goes on for an uncomfortable amount of time. And so it's got to be something that I'm excited about. So for Trapped in a Video Game, just the very basic story of Trapped in a Video Game, I grew up and I remember always thinking about this show. It was a show called Nickelodeon Arcade. And Nickelodeon Arcade was on Nickelodeon. I didn't have Nickelodeon because I didn't have cable, but my friend down the street, Anthony Laporta, had cable, so Anthony was cool. And I went to Anthony's house and I watched this show one time and it just blew my mind. Because at the end of the show, the kids that had won like the trivia part of the game show or whatever, they put on helmets and elbow pads and knee pads, like something big is going to go down. These big metal doors open up, smoke pours out, the kids run through, doors close, a TV turns on, and now those real kids are inside of a real video game, and they're dodging things, they're fighting a boss, and I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. And so that's really where the trapped in a video game thing came from, is that idea of just like, hey, if I can make it feel like you're trapped in a video game, like I remember that feeling. I remember that feeling of thinking about going on that show and going inside of a video game. And if I can kind of capture that and recreate that, then I know that like I'm onto something. In all my subsequent books, it does start that same way, where it's like maybe there's a genre, maybe there's a thing, a mix of things that I think can work. So for instance, like and I don't know if you guys have this in Australia or whatever, but there was like a party game called Mafia, where
Yes, yes, we
you know
do.
that one, okay, where you
Yeah.
look around and you wink at somebody, and so somebody's the thing, right? And so I'm like, well, that would be fun to do in a video game where, like there's one person who's a traitor and everybody's trying to do it. It's like a murder mystery for kids, right? And so you can't do murder and kids very easily without people getting mad, but you can in a video game. So I'm like, so that was kind of the driving force behind one of my escape from a video game books, was to just choose your own adventure book. I put it on a spaceship. And it turns out as soon as I finish that, there's a game that becomes very popular called Among Us. That's just like the one that I made up. But I mean, some people can look at that and like, all right, you got to chase this popular
Mm,
game.
mm.
And for me, like really, that game was not popular when I wrote. I didn't know about the game. Nobody knew about the game, but it's like, this is a thing that I connect with. This is a thing that I like. I like heist kind of stories, and I always try to look for maybe something that's a fun crossover. So the one that I'm working on now is a heist that takes place in like an Animal Crossing, like very cute kind of game. And so like just this kind of gritty heist inside of Animal Crossing thing is just like it's just funny. It's just a lot of fun things. There have been times when I've written things that like it's just I'm trying to maybe take the next step in the narrative, take the next step in
Mm.
the series, and not gotten excited about the book. And the hardest book that I ever wrote was like that is the second World's Worst Time Machine book. And I'm like, okay, I'm trying to get from here to here. And it was just a slog. Like I kept
Mm.
erasing, kept going back and forth until I kind of figured out, well, what would be a fun story to tell? What would be a fun thing? And it sounds like a very simple thing, but it's a thing that you forget a lot of times, and it's a thing that I've forgotten many times. And once I figured that out, I'm like, oh, that's it, and it's my favorite book now. Because again, like you just got to kind of find that driving thing. What's the thing that gets you excited about the book? If you can find that, and if you can find a way to present that to an audience, I think you have at least a chance to have something special.
Yeah, and as I'm listening to you, it reminds me because just recently I was doing or watching the David Walliams BBC Maestro course, and he sounds so
Mm,
similar to you in the sense that he looks for what excites him, even in the adult world, and goes,
yeah.
"Oh, how can I take that and put it in a way that doesn't offend or upset people?" Like I think he was talking about how he loves The Shining, and you can't really do that for kids, but that's where he got yeah, exactly right. But he did Awful Auntie, where the auntie, because aunties can be a bit, the character that's evil, let's say the villain, she's trying to kill the kid. I haven't read it, but I thought, all right. And it's just the way the your mind is looking for a really strong emotional response, like like that excitement, and then coupling it with making it super fun and just picking things from around the place. Like I love that. And also for you doing that research and seeing, do people like that? Do people read that? What's popular with kids? So yeah, it's amazing. I definitely want to learn from that and do more of that. And so I think that's such valuable advice for the people listening to really pay attention to how they're feeling. And I mean, of course, you've got church group kids and all these other kids that you can run the ideas off. But yeah, always making sure that that little bing bing is going off, because if it isn't, I love that you said you took that second book, you're a bit stuck, but now it's turned out to be your favorite book. Like how long was the process in making that happen? Like did it take time away? Did it take a moment of you going, oh, I've got to do something different here? What happened?
Oh, I mean, it was the worst. Like was thinking like, man, maybe I can just give this advance back and like I don't have to write this book. I mean, that goes through your head, right? And so yeah, that was tough. Where that was I remember I started writing it in September and I wanted to have it done by it was supposed to be done by Christmas, so we could get it as a fall release the next year. And I remember on Thanksgiving I remember I couldn't sleep. Woke up in the morning and I went downstairs and I was in the basement and just pacing. I remember pacing for an hour and and just going through this thing like I don't like this book and what is it about this that I don't like that I'm trying to do and it just kind of came down to like there's nothing here that gets me excited. Like I was excited about a twist at the end is what I was excited about, but I wasn't excited about anything in the middle, anything in between. And so I had for that particular book, I kind of had the idea of a John Wick kind of thing. And again, like you're talking about The Shining for kids and John Wick for kids. And like I have not even watched any of the John Wick movies, okay, but I've seen the trailers and I love the idea of, all these assassins that are trying to get him, and everybody's kind of hiding in this assassin. And so my idea was to have they go back to like the 1893 World Fair in Chicago and they're looking for something. And I was like, well, it would be cool if there was all these other people from the future that were also coming back and they're all in disguise in the past because if you get discovered then the time cracks get you or whatever. And so but they all had these weapons and they're all trying to find the same thing. I'm like, oh, that is a thing that I can get excited about. And so it did kind of take that moment. And sometimes it's just one moment like that. And that's really fun when that happens. A lot of times it's kind of like you get those little kind of breakthroughs throughout. And for me, it's kind of turned into if I'm feeling stuck about something, if I'm feeling like I don't want to write today, and I have a couple of those days in a row, that's my signal to be like, whoa, like I'm not being lazy. It is my back of my brain knowing that there's something in this story that is not right. And I just got to sit here and figure out what it is. And so that's what that book kind of taught me. So that book took me about 8 months to write. I finally finished it in April. And my publisher again was really great. I told them like, listen, I don't know about this, and they're like, you know what, we would rather it be good than it be done and hit some deadline. So let's make it good. And so for me, really, it was that, and I've gone through that same process a lot of times since then. But that really taught me to like, hey, I'm not gonna. My first temptation is just to kind of like grit my teeth and push through and do it, and I found that that is not the right approach. At least for me. For me, when I have that feeling is to stop and to think what's wrong with the story. And if I let myself kind of have that conversation with myself, I'm almost always kind of able to put my finger on what the problem is. And do I always get the solution right on the first try? No, I do not. But I get it right more often than not. And if I don't get too far before I, kind of turn back and get there. So, I think that maybe some authors are better about getting through that stuff in the outline process. That would be nice, but for me, it's kind of works that way best. And so for me, it also takes a lot of pressure off when I do feel that writer's block thing, where it is just kind of a signal where it's like, okay, like I'm just gonna stop and step back for a second and figure it out. And that frees me a little bit, and that feels a lot better than just kind of gritting my teeth and trying to grind through it.
Yeah, such amazing advice. And I hear you that with that pressure and like I've got this really big hurdle I'm trying to get over where
Hmm.
writing illustrated chapter books, that's okay. I did finish a series, but the middle grade novels, I am yet to finish a series. And I have this disease called I can't get past book one, um, which is not unusual. But part of the problem is that I either, because I got two series, I either read the first book of one series and go, oh my God, that is so bad. I have to write a better book than that. In my other series, I do the exact opposite thing. I read the first book and go, my God, was I on drugs when I wrote this? This is so well written. I can never write like that again. And it's that sense, what I'm hearing from you, correct me if I'm wrong, almost like you do have a sense of what's acceptable for your own kind of brand of writing. Like I sort of have now nicknamed it is the book page worthy because it's a riff on my surname Eleanor Page. But is it page worthy? Like if I put that out, even if it's not perfect, or the kids go that's dumb, but I go no, it's not. I loved it. Like I got that right. I like that bit. Um, I'll still take the feedback, but it's just something about staying true to sort of ingredients, and we might not know what those ingredients are really clearly, or maybe we haven't articulated them, but we do know, like you're saying them, they're sort of that fun, that cool little twist, that really great scene, or bringing those ideas together in a way that fits any other Dustin Brady book I might pick up. Might not be as good as whatever, I might even be better because not every book's gonna, hit the same way. But it's not because you didn't write it right. It just might be, oh, I'm not into gangsters from that period, right? But the kid next to me really is. So that's a different thing than you didn't feel like you delivered your kind of the way you normally would deliver a book. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. No, totally. I mean, I have the exact same thing with the second book. Like my wife always, makes fun of me with it. She's like, "Oh, it's your second book." Like, no, it'll be fine. And then it's not fine. And because yeah, for me, a lot of times, I mean, that the first World's Worst Time Machine, that was my favorite book that I had written, and it was kind of like it's not going to be as good as this. And you just gotta try to hit that balance of like, what is, what's good, what's working for you and what's not. But at the same time, you got to let the process play out. And that first draft for me I always feel like this is the worst thing I've ever written, and it's just how it is. And you kind of got to be okay with that for a while. And it is a balance. It's a really tough balance, and I don't always get it right. And there's weeks that I've wasted, kind of like tearing myself up about something where I should have just gone ahead and written a draft and see where it goes. And there's other times. So for me, yeah, I think a lot of times like I can be too hard on myself, especially early in the process. And I think in the more recent years, I've gotten better at just kind of trusting the process. And it always does seem like in that last couple of weeks, it turns around. You're like, oh, okay, all right, I remember how to write again, and this is fun, you know. But it's a thing where you just gotta trust the process, and it doesn't feel great at times, you know.
I love the way you said, "Oh, I remember how to write again." I interview illustrators, and they say the same thing. I've forgotten how to draw. They haven't, but then they're like, "Oh, actually, maybe I do remember how to draw." It's like this weird thing that you, like you said, have forgotten. But how could you forget? It's part of now your kind of muscle memory or your brain memory. But it's probably because we're always growing to the next level and you're expecting new things of yourself. You want to impress the readers, keep them loving you, keeping loving reading, which is ultimately your original aim, and you don't want to let them down. So I wonder if it's often because we care so much about other people, not so much about our own um, perception of ourselves. Like, I mean, honestly, if someone said I've suddenly turned into a bad writer, I don't think I'd care as much or at all compared to if they said, oh, yeah, I didn't really like reading that, so maybe I won't read or finish it or read anymore.
Yeah.
That would hurt more.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think for me, it's just I gotta be okay with the fact that I don't have good ideas at first. Like I gotta put
I
my
find
ideas
that
out.
so hard to believe.
Well, you haven't read my first drafts. I'll give my books to my wife, and she'll, and she gives me great feedback, and then I'm like, oh, here's my first idea. She's like, what? Like, how could you possibly think that would work? And I'm like, I know, but you have to get through those first ideas, to get to the ones that work. And so for me, I just gotta realize that, listen, like, I'm going to come up with the best ideas I got, and they're not going to end up being good, but there's what's going to get me to the idea later on that actually works and it clicks together.
Do you hire her out to other people? Can we send her our manuscripts?
She would love it.
That could be her side hustle. That would be amazing.
Yeah, yeah. No, she gives great feedback from the perspective of, she doesn't come she comes from the perspective of a parent. And as, she is really good at reading it from that perspective of a parent or from a kid that is coming at it from that angle. And she gives me some really great feedback that way. I'm really thankful for it for sure.
Yeah. How do you balance writing time and all the other things you do? Like, in other words, are you very kind of like every day I sit and write for a period of time, or are you just
Yeah.
sporadic?
No, I'm not sporadic, because I got deadlines, and if I was sporadic, then I wouldn't hit those deadlines. So I've tried a bunch of different things, and the thing that just within the last couple of months I've been doing that works really, really well for me. I was reading some books and thinking through my process, and again, it's always refining, and this is what works for me. Maybe it doesn't work for other people, but what seems to work really well for me is knowing that I have an hour and a half. So I said I have a thing that shuts off my phone, shuts off my internet on my computer for an hour and a half. And then I write for that hour and a half, no distractions, and knowing that it's only an hour and a half is really good for my brain. I used to go longer, but my brain's like, well, listen, we got 3 hours. Like I'm gonna just kind of like wander around for even though there's nothing I can look at, I'm just gonna wander around in imagination world and waste some time that way. But knowing it's an hour and a half really gets my brain going in a good place. And so I have found that in that hour and a half, I can do between like 600 and 800 words. And then I'll take a break for a half hour or so and walk away from the computer, do laundry, do whatever, and then do another hour and a half. And that's it. That's it for the day. I'm done for the day. And so there might be times when I'm on a deadline or whatever that I need to write some more. But I've found, that keeps my brain from getting mushy from doing it. And it's also, I look forward to it. It gets me into that kind of like flow zone a lot faster just because there's no other option. Like I only have an hour and a half. That's not long. I'm just going to do it and get the words out, and you try to do it that way. So I found that if I'm rewriting, which is the bulk of my time, I can get 600 to 800 words. If I'm just doing a first draft and I don't care, I can do maybe 1,500 words. And so I found that that hour and a half works really well. And I've tried a bunch of different things. And some of them worked better. This is kind of the iteration that I found. I tried for a while, like my brain is just like, oh, I like challenges, and I feel like I like doing tough things. And so I hate doing the first draft. And so I tried for a couple books, and it was like, okay, but I would write the whole draft in 2 days. And so I'd go away, get a hotel, like just be like, I'm getting wake up at 5 in the morning, go, 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 go to sleep, wake up, go, 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 go. And then by 5 o'clock the next day, my brain was mush, but that first draft was done. And then, the second draft is when I do most of my is when I do the rewriting, but is when I, kind of really put the story together. But just getting through that first draft was is nice. So to me, that was it is a little counterproductive, and it is a little it's not super fun. And so I found this hour and a half thing works really really well for me. Maybe it might work for other people too, but that's what I
Yeah.
found. Again, just in the last couple months, and it's I keep waiting for it not to work, and it keeps working. So.
Yeah, great. So you might say draft a bit. I mean, like kind of original write, draft a bit, then go back, sort
hmm
of fix it, then keep going. Is it sort of a bit of a cycling approach?
What I found is I do a whole first draft, and I do have like kind of an outline of what I think it's going to be. And usually, the reason why writing the whole thing didn't work is because like almost always about maybe a third of the way through I stop. I'm like, oh yeah, this is
Mm.
not a good idea because of this and this. And so then I can kind of stop and do it. But I try to get through that whole first draft, or at least to like a point where I'm like, okay, now I know what the story is. So sometimes it's three-quarters of the way, sometimes it's the whole way through, but it is that whole way through writing at that 1,500 words in an hour and a half pace. And then once I have that, I go back and reread it, figure out what's working, figure out what's not working, and then totally rewrite the whole thing. So I have the chapter up, and then I just rewrite it. And sometimes I'll use the passages that I wrote in the first draft, but probably most of the time, 2/3 of the time, I'm just writing whole new stuff. And so that is the bulk of the writing time. And then I'll go back after that and do a couple of rounds of edits. But after that second draft, it's in at least pretty good shape. And then I can kind of go back and tinker with it and things like that. But that's kind of my process.
Oh, so interesting. Wow, I love this. Like the complete almost rewrite. So fascinating. I've not heard of
Yeah.
that before. Well, maybe. I mean, obviously
Oh.
people do it. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's something to definitely try. And how long, apart from the second book in the worst ever time machine, how long would it normally take to write one of those books? Like how many words are
About
we talking? Like how many roughly?
Yeah, so my books are usually 25, 26,000 words.
Yeah.
So they're not huge, but they're not,
Mm.
10,000 words either. And it usually takes about 3 months to write that, 3, 4 months to write that. And so, that's 3, 4 months I'm doing other things in there. Like I'll probably have school visits, I'll have different things like that. But usually that's kind of what I budget for.
Yeah, wow. And having a publisher versus when you didn't have one, how does the
hmm
marketing look different? Is it true that once you have a publisher, you never have to do anything to market your books?
Yes. No, just kidding.
Oh, I was going to say, wow, we all want
I
a
know,
publisher.
no, it's a magic thing. No, I mean, they've been great. They pay for the Amazon ads work really well still on Trapped in a Video Game. So they've been really great, and they run those Amazon ads. And there's other series that Amazon ads don't work great for. And so for me, my goal is kind of like I don't Amazon still is the bulk of the sales for my books, which is great. They're the biggest book seller in the world. But I want to make sure that, it's just always an algorithm change away from becoming irrelevant. I don't want that to happen. So I'm always kind of trying to come up with different things and different ways to stay relevant as far as the marketing goes and things like that. So I have a lot of ideas of things that I want to do, some things that I've done, I've worked on. working on direct sales and things like that. Again, you have those direct sales and you have those email addresses and you can, you get those customers in your system and things like that. And so that is something that I started last year. Learned a lot of things over the holidays. Again, have a lot of ideas coming up here. So I think for me, over the next maybe year or two, I'm writing this book. I'm finishing this book that I'm on, but taking a little bit of a slower pace, where maybe it's one book a year, maybe it's looks a
Mhm.
little bit different, and really kind of focusing on some of those different things and seeing what sticks, what works. And again, for me, it's just trying to get, whether it's direct sales, whether it's as far as like reaching more teachers and librarians and things like that. Parents and families have been a huge ally for me, and word of mouth has been huge that way. But trying to get more into schools and things like that is kind of the next step that I'm looking at. So different things, and I'm always trying different things. But yeah, it doesn't for me. It's always a business, and I like that part too. It's not just a creative thing; it's always a business thing, and that goes into, like we talked about before, picking what you're writing about. But it always also goes into, it's my job to introduce my books to people, and so how do I market myself? How do I talk about myself? Where do I go to get in front of those people and trying things? And like I said, with my books, I have a lot of ideas that are bad, but those bad ideas kind of get you to the next idea, and that's what you got to try.
Yeah, it reminds me of, I was listening to the interview with Brandon Sanderson, and he's a very, well, some people won't know him, but he's a fiction author who's been really successful. And I think his Kickstarter did like 14 mil or something like that, he was saying in the interview. But I think the thing that stood out, similar to what you're saying, is that even though he had such massive success, he's only tapped 5% of the market. And if you think about, your books are evergreen, like there'll be heaps of people, as even now, who listen to the podcast who are like, trapped in a video game. How, I've never heard of that before. And I'm like, where have you been hiding under a rock? But it's true, right? So there's like so many markets, and it just never ends, because even the kids have grown up and now new kids are coming through. And so that marketing and getting new people, even internationally, do you do much of that? Is just never stops. You could, I mean, you might have sold 3 million, and I will ask you if that's true in a minute. But 3 million's probably, I don't know, 0.1% of the market, something like that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's what I think is cool about writing for children. That you do get that cycle that, if you are fortunate enough to have your books do well on Amazon, or just kind of be in the general thing for kids. Like there's kids books from 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago that people still read, And so just because kids are always cycling through. And so I've seen that with my books, where there's kids that read them when they first came out, and they're graduating high school or they're college. Like, that feels so weird. So that is really cool to be able to see, for sure.
So, how does your publisher deal with translations and things like that? Do they go chasing that as well? Is that something they do?
Yeah, for sure. So with all my books, there's a period of time when they have the rights for the translation and they shop those around, and then whatever they haven't sold by then after a certain period of time, we have a conversation where it can go back to me if I want to try to sell them, or if they, and I'm happy as of now to let them continue selling. So Trapped in a Video Game in particular has been really great, and they have a great department over there that takes care of that. So the books have been, every couple months or so, I'll get a package of books, and from, these languages that I don't know. And so I have these books, and it's funny to see what they do with some of them, do their own illustrations or
Oh,
covers or
wow.
things like that. And I always get a kick out of that. But yeah, that's a cool thing about having a publisher too, where they chase that kind of thing for me.
Oh, I can feel it, the Dustin Brady like conglomerate. It's like spreading into all the different countries. I think it's amazing. Can you imagine? Like, oh, I mean, I hope they translate it right, because that's my biggest fear. Is
I wouldn't know, so I'll
yeah.
take I'll take their word for it.
No, but that's awesome. All right, so the big question, boom, 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 because I am terrified of doing school visits. It's a very famous known fact on this podcast that I refuse. I want to, but I refuse. And so I'm looking for that encouragement. First of all, how important, like, be honest, because sometimes I hear that you have to do school visits or you can't be a success. But, I do believe Amazon ads are the answers to all the woes in my life, as far as I'm concerned. So, how important, like, quite honestly, in the strategy of things from a business perspective, I'm going to say, right? Not from a you love connecting with kids. From a business perspective, if you are honest, how important do you think school visits are in, I'm just going to go straight to the crux of it, creating sales?
So, I mean, I will say that I am very, very fortunate that my sales are, more than enough for me to live on. And I know that that's not true for a lot of people. And I know that I'm very blessed that way. So the Amazon sales for me, I can live on that and that for as of now, and that's
Yeah.
great. And so the school visits to me is a bonus, and it's my favorite thing I get to do as an author. It's the best. I think you're crazy for being scared. But so for me that's where it comes from. And so um as far as the sales of the schools visits go, like, yeah, it's great. If I were relying on that for my income, I would be a lot more diligent about booking more school visits and things like that. I mean, I get paid, obviously, the school pays me to come in, and then you get paid for the books that you sell. And so I have some different ways. I found when I do school visits, what works best for me is to, I know a lot of authors will like send in the order form before kids order the books and then they sign them on the day of. And so I found actually I always send out the order form on the day of the visit because the kids are really excited about it then. They know what books they want. They've heard about my different books. And then they have about a week to turn them in. I sign them all, mail them back to the school, and that's what works out better. So that gives me a lot of sales. But to answer your original question, I think for a lot of authors, it is really important. It's a really important strategy. For me, like I'm blessed enough to be able to look at it like, hey, this is a really fun way to connect with kids. And it's my favorite thing I get to do. And so it also lets me be like, hey, I limit my school visits to about 20 days a year. That gives me a lot of chances, still enough opportunity to write, still enough opportunity to do everything I want to do, but to be able to get that connection with kids too.
Yeah. So do you go in and have like a special presentation or do you just chat about your book? What approach do you have?
Yeah. No, I mean I have a whole spiel that is I mean I think it's good.
Yeah.
And I've gotten a lot of feedback that like, oh, this is the best author visit we've had. And so what I do
Oh.
is I talk about it. I use it as an opportunity to like encourage the kids to chase what they want to do. And so and one thing I always tell people about school visits is like, hey, you are a storyteller. You know how to tell stories. So tell a story, make it a
Mm.
story, and you will, and you're good at telling stories. So engross these kids in a story. So I talk about like writing trapped in a video game. And so I take it. Well, first of all, I position it as like I say how to do magic, and so I do a magic trick where I light something on fire, and kids love that. So and teachers get a little nervous because it's lighting something on fire at school. But I always clear it with somebody first, and so I do that. I'm like, and so my thing is like I talk about I say I can't tell you how to do that magic trick. Magicians have a code. I get tossed out of the magician school, but I was like uh, I can tell you how to do real life magic, and real life magic is something that somebody does that I don't understand how they do it. Like somebody can think of a picture in their head and draw that perfectly. And I go through some things. I said writing a book felt like magic to me. Like I didn't know how somebody could write a whole book that was 200 pages long. So I talk about, well, I sat down one day to do it, and how many pages do you think I wrote? And the kids always are like 100, 200. And I keep asking until I get to some kid that says like five, and I start yelling, five? What are you talk, and I tell them it was 2 paragraphs. I tell them how I wasted the day. And then I was like, I tried it again. I wasted the whole day again. And so I realized like I hate writing. And then the kids all gasp. And, I'm like, the teachers are getting real nervous, but I did all, I go through all the stuff I did besides writing. I must hate writing. I'm like, I don't hate writing. I have this guy who is in my head whose name is Doug, and Doug hates writing, and I put a picture of the screen of this guy, and he's just like this poor guy who let himself be used as a stock photo. He's just like a real slovenly guy with like his shirt off on the couch, and it gets a big laugh. And so I'm like, I got to defeat Doug, so I talk about the things I did to defeat Doug, and I tried turning the internet off, but Doug turned the internet back on, and I threw my phone across the room. I did these things, and then I get to like, I figured out how to defeat Doug, and I wrote this book, and I talk about, so kids, like, you can, if you have Doug in your life, here are some ways that you can defeat Doug. You can do this, you can have a routine, you can do that, and so and I'm like, try to make it applicable to kids that, it's not just about writing, it's not just about art, it's music, it's sports, it's anything you want to get good at. You're going to have self-discipline, and you're going to have to defeat Doug. So I kind of came up with that. Again, I just wanted to be a general thing, wanted to be a story, wanted to be funny. And that's just my personality. Like, that's the kind of thing that I'm going to talk about. And then that's the first half. The second half, I do talk about my books, talk about some of the story behind why I wrote, I talk about Nickelodeon Arcade. I show a clip of that. I just try to make it fun, talk about some of the things. The Layla Nugget Mysteries, it's based on my daughter, Layla, my dog Nugget. So I show pictures of them. I talk about the real life Layla when she solved the mystery in kindergarten, and I talk about that. It's a real cute little story that I tell about her. So different things like that. But I guess my advice to you and to anybody else
Thank
who wants to
you.
do school visits is to, if you can set something on fire, by all means do that. But have a story, and think of stories, and everybody loves stories, and you're good at telling stories. You have a course about it, for crying out loud, Ellen. So tell some stories, and you're a celebrity up there. Like,
Mm.
the kids all think that you are, the most famous person in the world up there, and you get a lot more leeway than you would if you were their teacher or somebody else. So tell some stories, and it's gonna go well.
Yeah, such good advice. And, be your true personality too. That really
Yeah.
shone through in your words. But what I absolutely loved is the way, you're coming back almost full circle to your bio, which is, you write books for kids who think they hate reading until they've read, one of your books. But likewise, it sounds like your school visit is really talking to the heart of a lot of kids think they hate writing, and you're
Yeah.
there to give them another perspective. So I love that. I absolutely love the way you approach your school visits. So amazing. And 20, I like that. I reckon I could do 20. I have some authors on who do like 50 or 100, and I'm like, I don't want that to be my full-time career.
Yeah, no, that would make me crazy. That if I do 3 or 4 a day in a row, and then
Oh,
like I'm on session 3 of I'm like, did I just say this 2 seconds? Your brain starts going crazy. You're driving everywhere. That's no fun. And so, but it is just kind of
mm.
what's your business model, and so again, I'm fortunate enough that I don't have to do 100 school visits, and so it is still a treat for me, and I like doing it for sure.
Yeah, amazing. It's been such a great interview. I have one last question. Where will Dustin be in 10 years' time? Talk to me. What is the big plan? Like, will you have 100 books by then, and every kid in the
Oh
world
man.
will only be reading your books because they're the only fun ones? What's happening?
Listen, I am thankful for any kid that reads my books. Honestly, like, I just want to be able to do this as a full-time job, and to be able to keep doing this. And so I will do whatever it takes to keep doing this, to keep writing these books. If I can write, 2 books a year, 3 books a year, do 20 school visits a year, and again, it's all about, impacting kids, hearing from kids, and things like that. And that's the best thing. And so, yeah, if I sell 60 million books, and have, a series of 5 movies, like, that's great. But if I get to keep doing exactly this, what I'm doing, I'll be the happiest person in the world. And
Beautiful.
so for me, it's to continue to do that. If finding opportunities to take the risk of Amazon turning upside down or something like that. Doing those things, not just having my head in the sand about that stuff, but keep going, keep doing what I'm doing, finding things that work, keep trying different ideas, and if something takes off and blows up, Trapped in a Video Game is a thing that took off and blew up, and I can't tell anybody how to do that. But I can tell people to keep trying, have a theory, figure it out, be clear-eyed afterwards, what worked, what didn't, and then continue on from there. And I think that, that's something that I will continue to do for sure, and something I'm focused on for sure.
Yeah, amazing. So incredible. I can't wait to see what you write next. I follow you on Amazon, and when I get that little ping, I go, what is written next? I'm never disappointed.
Thank you, Amazon, for that.
yeah. So I don't see that, slowing down anytime. But yeah, I bet it will be 5 movies and 60. So have you sold 3 million books? I can't get off the air without asking it.
Yeah, it's right around 3 million. I can't say we've hit exactly 3 million yet, but exactly. If not, it's right around there, which is pretty cool.
And you know what I love about that is that, you're not like you're not like Brad Pitt famous sort of level, right? So there's a lot of people who are really successful in writing books that no one knows about. And I think that in and of itself should be really encouraging, if that makes sense. Like, you don't have to sort of be J.K. Rowling to have been really successful with your books in life. And that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, no, totally, for sure. I mean, I'm always encouraged reading other people's books, getting inspired. I'm encouraged when I read good books. I'm encouraged when I read bad books that that are, that I know sell well. I'm like, all right, I can do that, So totally. Yeah, I hope people get something out of mine either way with that. So
I'm sure they will. Thank you so much for being on the show. All the links to Dustin will be in the show notes. And again, it's been such a joy. Thank you for sharing time with myself and the audience on this stuff.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Ellen. It was great catching up.
Did you find that interview valuable? Great! Now be an awesome human and go and leave a review, because it helps the podcast out so much. Want to read the show notes? Check out thechildren'sbookauthorpodcast.com. Want to find out more about me, Eleanor Page? Find me at eleanorpage.com, or come and say hello on social at Eleanor Page Books. Until next time, keep writing and keep learning.